I think this is a game where Drew Aller, if everything hits right, can go off because they also don't have a pass rush. New England never had a strong pass rush. They did it by design and by numbers. And in college, you just don't have the same level of talent consistently across the board. Offensively, what I have seen so far is they remind me a little bit of Illinois. Quarterback is good. Like, he can make good reads, man coverage, throw the football, the slants, everything you talked about. But when you force him to quarterback and to do the next thing, that's where he tends to make some mistakes. He tends to throw the ball to the other team. When things get compressed, red zone, inside the 40 scoring territory, they can't rely on an offensive line that is big but not explosive. They move well. They're fluid. I think they're well coached, but I don't see dynamism from that front. So as long as Penn State doesn't get bullied size-wise, I think that their athleticism is good enough in those situations. So that's kind of my thumbnail of what I've seen so far. A lot of NFL like ideas on both sides of the ball, including a lot of play action fits. A lot of these like just traditional bootlegs and things like that. I just think Penn State can handle all of that.
I agree. And you work with play action. That's going to cut down on your time getting the ball. And I know Ryan said about the slants and stuff near the line of scrimmage, but if you're going to try and, fool Penn State by going play action, you might have a guy on your back by the time you get to the depth of your drop. Yeah. So I think that certainly helps Penn State. It's going to be one of those things. I don't see this as a team that's built to dig out of a hole and get from behind. And you look at some of the losses that they have, all the losses that they have. Close loss to Washington State on the road, close loss to Rutgers on the road. Like that was a tough one to stomach for them, I'm sure. And then blown out by Iowa and Indiana, two offensive juggernauts there. So it's been interesting to watch the ebbs and flows of this. And I think that's probably, I don't want to say they're performing above expectations, but like you look at it, they were gutted, like not just by the coaching change, not just by the guys leaving for the portal, but also the amount of talent they had. Like, you remember their receivers last year? They were awesome. And they've done a nice job of sort of backfilling that stuff. And they're not as explosive as they were going to be. They still have some really good talent there. But that's definitely how I see that one coming together. It's like you get into November, you're on a Big Ten travel roster. So you've got 70 some guys. So you're kind of, and not that 75 to 85 play, but you're kind of making choices here for special teams. You're doing all these things that have to cut down on your roster. And when you're not a deep team to begin with, I think that's something that can come back and bite you.
Yeah. Nate in the chat says, and I think this is a very good point. Prevent chunk runs from Coleman and Penn State wins. 5'9", 230. He is a big boy. James Franklin pointed that out. Like, that is a power back, but he is very good vision-wise, and he is very good at bouncing and creating outside of space, and he's fast enough. I haven't watched enough to see, like, is he superstar break tackles, big-time play fast? But, excuse me, I did not get that sense right away. Do either of you have a sense of that, though, of, like, the threat that they possess or they pose for Penn State on the ground, which that's where I think they're trying to build their offense, is run the ball and then take some shots. USC, their defensive secondary wasn't great. They were more aggressive than I've seen them in other games, but really it seems like the identity is to run the football. How do you think that plays out, Ryan, in terms of, Penn State's advantage or disadvantage?
Without a doubt, I mean, the best run defense they played all year was Iowa, I believe. I mean, I didn't watch every second of that game, but I mean, they held them under 100 yards, and I think Penn State can do something similar. But to me, this is all about Penn State's offense more than what Penn State's defense will do. I mean, I feel pretty confident Penn State's defense can keep them under 17 points. To me, it's can Penn State's offense rebound after what, they've been talked negatively for all week now. So to me, it's again, I'll just circle back to, I think this is all about Penn State's offense more than about Penn State's defense.
Yeah. And everyone was ready to do that as well, right? Like all season it's been like, what's wrong with the offense? What's wrong with the offense? What's wrong with the offense? And then suddenly it's like, well, we told you so. So it's been a year. It's been a 2-month plus process of that for the Penn State offense, which fits. I think that is, Ryan brings up a good point. That is a really important thing, is that the offense looks good in this game. So let's get into our game predictions and let's talk about what we think is going to happen for the Nittany Lions on the football field. I'll let you go first and give your score prediction and generally how you think the game will play out.
Yeah, I think Washington can keep it close. I think this might be a situation where you find yourself in a UCLA type situation where, yes, there should be elements there, or should be avenues there where you can get big plays. There should be all this stuff, but we haven't really seen it come through. So I think that that's tough to sort of tough to handle if you're Penn State, because where have the points gone? Like,
Yeah.
were the points there to begin with? I think that that's, we see all this, the flashy stuff and the cool things when you open up against West Virginia, but how do you sustain that? And how do you improve on that? And it's been hit and miss. So I think that we might be in for another type of those games. I am frantically trying to figure out what my score prediction was. 27-16, which actually not far off from the UCLA game. Yeah, I don't know that you can look at this Penn State team and say that they're going to be able to put up a ton of points. There's like more opportunity there. I think there's just more space when you play against a defense that's not Ohio State. There's just more space here. So that helps Liam Clifford. That helps Khalil Dinkins. That helps those little throws, those digs across the middle that Drew is so good at throwing. Like the little extra window can make all the difference there. You got to go out, you got to finish. And just after last week, just not a ton of confidence in that offense, but 27 points is the new, 17 points. So we'll go with that.
Ryan, what do you think?
Well, they allowed 31 points to Indiana, 40 to Iowa, 24 Washington State. Those are all their losses. 21 to Rutgers. So my prediction, I think Penn State can get to 30 points. Now, with that said, I think it's going to be late that they get some of those points. I do think going into halftime, this will be closer than probably fans hope. And my main thing I'm wondering is, do we see that nervous energy that we sometimes see in Beaver Stadium, right? You're coming off the loss to Ohio State. Everyone's expecting you to make a playoff game. You got a couple games here that can be tricky. Obviously, they've done well against Maryland. Purdue's not anything special, but this game in Minnesota, these are their two ones that I think everybody's going to have circled. Is if there's going to be a slip up, it would be these two. So if the offense doesn't get out to a fast start, is there that little bit of nervousness that we've seen sometimes in Beaver Stadium, and sometimes that does impact how these college kids play. So I do think Penn State kind of does what we've seen all year. Maybe a little bit of a slow start, takes it up a notch in the third quarter. We're talking about maybe a 13-10 kind of game, maybe in the end of the half, and then Penn State takes it in the second half and eventually covers. But I'll tell you this, I wouldn't bet the spread if you want to play this game this week. I think there's too many variables that would worry me from playing 13 points.
They should simply run the pick six play for the third week in a row. That would really help them. I think
that would help.
Yeah, get that nice boost to start the game too.
Maybe they helped last week
early.
Venga, former Washington commit. Maybe you throw him the ball this week.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak it into existence.
Revenge game.
Yeah, no,
just don't put him in motion 4 times in a row.
Yeah, I think so. That that just interesting that like James Franklin says a lot in those opening press conferences, and one of the things, he will not outright criticize any of his coaches until after they're gone. But he said, the heavy formation is great until you can't do anything with it because everyone's, stacking the box. And it's not just those plays necessarily that you saw at the goal line, but it's also in the middle of the field. Penn State is number 3 in the country in terms of 6-man offensive lines. It's 4 or 5 plays a game, but how do you use those opportunities elsewhere? This is how I feel about the game from what I think is possible. I have given Penn State too many points all season long. I've consistently done that because I believe in certain elements of the offense, even despite the evidence that it hasn't really worked out. Penn State should score 35 in this game. Amari Evans should be a big part of this game. They should be able to throw the ball to Tyler Warren. They should have plenty of room to run. Even in the style of man coverage they play a lot of single high defense, cover 3, cover 1. From what I've seen, it is more of a predictable picture for Drew Aller. And if you give him a predictable picture, this dude can shred you, especially if you play cover 3. Andy Kotelnicki throwing the ball down the field against 3 safeties versus 4. That is more of a matchup advantage for Penn State. Will the run game get going? I don't think so. That's the thing, is that they play these big physical fronts that are designed for you not to run the football from a numbers and an alignment perspective. That being said, there are counters to that, literally running counter instead of zone. So there is an opportunity, if they can hit a run, that they could get back to being more synergistic on that side of the ball. I expect them to score 35 points. And if they don't, I feel like that is a missed opportunity. So Are they going to? Probably not. Am I setting them up for failure by giving them 35 points? Probably. But that's where we are in the season. If you want to start showing progress, fix the things that are wrong, get to 35 against this defense, which should give you opportunities to do that.
And doesn't Tyler Warren score like multiple times in every whiteout? Like, isn't that a thing? Like his whiteout stats are off the charts, right?
Yeah.
Going back a couple of years,
right.
like before he was a main part of the offense type thing. So just remember that. I think he'll be quite involved this week, and he'll have a little bit more breathing room, just like we mentioned with those other guys.